Welcome to Life at the Deep End. We are your hosts, Jordan Bone
and Samantha Bromfield. After facing challenges of our own, we wanted our voices to be heard, to authentically share not only our stories and experiences, but life lessons we are learning along the way.
To show you that despite any struggle you may face, life can be fulfilling and amazing, because ultimately, you are the creator of your reality.
You may often feel alone, but we are here to confirm that you are not.
So let's dive into the deep end.
Hi guys, and welcome back to the podcast. Today we have a very exciting guest, Sarah, also known as the bird's Papaya. We dive into a conversation around self-love and how to be body neutral, enjoying life through being more than just your looks. With over 1 million followers on Instagram, Sarah uses her platform to share her journey, and today with us we talk more about this. Sarah, so welcome to Life at the Deep End. It's a pleasure to have
hello. I know. And what time is it there for you guys? We're like on
nearly 3:45.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's not so bad. I always feel bad when I'm recording with somebody who's overseas because I'm always afraid that like it's like 2 a.m. or something.
Oh no.
I don't know. Like time zones. It's like 10 in the morning. It's like almost 11 here.
It's a good time for both of us then, I feel like.
Yeah. I like it.
Stupid o'clock. Wow. Me and Jordan were saying that we admire so much of the work that you do around like body positivity and the self-love, and so we're really keen to hear more about your journey on how you kind of your experiences you went through with that and how you got to where you are today with being such an open book at what you share and helping others.
Yeah, I'm happy to share it. I love when people are like, give us the elevator pitch of like how you got here. And I was like, it's going to be about 500 floors and we're going to have a journey. Now I've gotten pretty good at like tailoring it down, but basically 12 years ago, I was a stay-at-home mom of 2 little girls, and I found blogs for the first time. I was so lonely. I was living far away from family, and I found blogs for the first time and just felt connected to this community of people that I'd never seen and never met. And I was like, wow, like I just feel so much less lonely. How do I be a part of this? So I just started with the most atrocious blogging you've ever seen. Like it was so horrific. I had no money. So I literally Googled like how to code your own blog. And so it was like slapped together and it was dollar store crafts. I mean, I was hot glue gunning twine onto wine bottles to make vases. Like I was in. And back then, everyone had like a really cute blog name. So I was like, okay, I'm going to name it after my 2 daughters and their nicknames. So their names being Gemma, nicknamed Birdie, and Maya, Papaya. So it became the Bird's Papaya. So I started blogging, and I just was so like, it was so bad. Everything I was doing, all the content I was doing was horrific, but I was so in because I just loved this human connection that I was feeling. It was so strong and it was so bonding, and it made me feel so much less alone. And I was so excited to be a part of that. And then a few years in, I guess probably 7 years ago, we saw it flip. It went from being, blogs about your home and about your front porch and about those still exist and about what your kids were wearing. And suddenly it was Instagram, and it was all about what you looked like and what you were wearing, and your selfies were like this whole new thing. When we started getting those forward cameras on our phones, the world changed. And I just remember feeling like I'm out of touch with everything because I don't know how to even feel the same connection anymore because I don't want to show myself. I was okay to show my house, show my craft, show my kids, but I didn't want to show me. So what do you do when you're not happy with the way you look? You actively change it. So I went with, again, back similar to blogging. I Googled like, how do you lose weight? Like fast. And it brought me to an app that basically told me how many calories to eat a day, which was so unhealthy because there was no medical context for my body whatsoever. And it had me eating less than a toddler should eat in a day. And, I had it set that I wanted to lose a certain amount of pounds a week. And of course, anywhere that I could shave a little bit more off of what I was eating, the skinnier I would be. And then the faster I could accelerate this whole process, because I just wanted to feel a part of something again. I wanted to feel like I was a part of this social media thing. And this is how I was going to do it. And at the same time, I'd moved back home to my hometown. I was no longer this anonymous person in my, surroundings. I was running into people from high school, and my kids were getting older and they wanted to swim and stuff. And I was like, no, I don't want to do any of that. Like, all of it involves my body. All of it involves shame. I know. And so as I'm dieting and I'm now learning to exercise and all of this stuff, of course, I lost a lot of weight very, very rapidly. Mm-hmm. And the internet loved me for it. So I was immediately like, blanketed with acceptance from this societal, standards. I remember posting about the day that I was no longer plus size, and posting about the day that I was no longer double digits in pants. Like, I don't know why that was so meaningful to me, but it was so much ingrained in just being accepted, this human connection that I so craved. And I was seeking it in so many of the wrong places, because it just made it no longer was about, is my front porch cute? It was, how do I look? Am I presentable? Am I likable? Do you like me? Do you like my photo? Is this good enough? And if it's not, can I change this? Can I manipulate that? Can I face tune this? Can I smooth that? And it just became this rhythm of me doing this over and over again while trying to get smaller and smaller and smaller, to the point that I was, very underweight. And also going through some major life issues. You could see all of that on the surface and people were so congratulatory of that. But what was really going on in the background was I was leaving an 11-year marriage. I was now becoming a single mom of 3, living with my parents. And all anybody said when they saw me and had no idea was, oh my gosh, you look so great. Congratulations. Like, you've made it in the world, Sarah. You've lost weight. Look at you. And they had no idea that everything had bottomed out. And I think in that moment, I kind of woke up to the fact that, first of all, I can't sustain at this small of a body size because I'm under so much stress. This is no longer just me, self-loving and healthy eating and all of that. I'm not eating at all. And I'm exercising so much, and I'm working 2 jobs. And now I've got to uncomfortably look at the fact that I need to gain weight, and I need to change this. I need to be honest with people, and and let's be reasonable. I had more anxiety around leaving my house, more anxiety about posting on social media than I ever did in a larger body. Mm-hmm. And so this whole before and after story that I'd been telling was a complete lie, not only to others, but to myself. And when I faced that, I realized that I was going to have to completely change the way I showed up on social media, completely change the way I showed up for myself. And when I began to do that, a lot of it was through therapy and stuff as well. This idea of being more self-aware, listening to your thoughts and not listening to these outside validations, and trying to gain opinions of your own. I began to really recognize what things were making me anxious and what things were making me happy. And so much of that pulled from social media. And the more and more I got honest and vulnerable, I love this saying, like, once you tell a secret, it loses its power, because that's how my story feels. I was so ridden with shame around my stretch marks and my cellulite that it held me back from life. I was worried about, fat on my body because it held me back from life. But the reality was, once I started sharing that those were my realities, they no longer had this grip on my life. And I got to start showing up and existing in the life that I've been given, to be able to go and make memories with my family. And so it's been a bit of a long journey through that, because now we're quite in a new shift of all of that. Because when that was all going on, I didn't really know what body positivity even was. I had no idea of its roots. And I would say that now I'm working more towards being body neutral, not worrying about being positive about my body all the time, because it feels like something that I'll just fail at, and takes away me centering my, still thin identifying white able body away from centering in, this movement that was meant for marginalized bodies. So I am just a constant learning little person, and trying my best in this world to show up and be human and make all of those mistakes and admit to them. I've left up all my old posts. You can actually go and see them, when I ridiculed myself, when I fat shamed myself, when I was so ingrained in diet culture. And I want people to see that. I want people to see kind of that change and that evolution.
That's so amazing and so powerful. And to keep that all up there as well just shows that you're so authentic. And I think that's what people need to see these days. Like, they need to see the reality of all these, you know, these chapters that we go through, all these journeys, and all the things that we learn, because we can see people just feeling like, you know, confident in where they are now. We don't see the journey that they've been on a lot of the time. And that's when there's a lot of comparison. And your journey is just so powerful in what you've been through. And I just think, and to go through within yourself, and just to, you know, to recognize that actually, no, there needs to be a change here. That's really courageous to actually be like, no, come on, let's create a shift.
And I love the body neutral side of it, because body positivity is such a thing. And of course, like, you want everyone to strive for it to be completely comfortable in their own skin. But I imagine a lot of people can find that a bit unattainable, because it's natural to have days where you don't like the way you look in something, or whatever. Like, that's human nature. And so I think the message you're spreading about just being kind to yourself.
And I really think we need to, I've been reading so much about this week. It was something I was nerding out on the fact that, like, now it's kind of, the pendulum is swung in such a way that, you know, to be body positive means you shouldn't desire any change. But then or like, you shouldn't wear makeup, or you shouldn't have this, or you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't have fears. You shouldn't have bad days. You should be positive. And that is toxic. And at the same time, I can unpack this forever, but there's a conditioning in society that still exists. There's still a mainstream body that is rewarded. So you're still it's putting almost the ownership of this entire societal problem onto individuals. Like, it's your problem that you don't love yourself. That weight is now on your shoulders, that you don't feel positive about what you look like in the mirror, instead of actually looking at it in a wider scale and saying, okay, while we have this movement going on, while we are striving for change, while all of this is going, we still have the increase in body positivity has not decreased eating disorders. While it has been very complementary in so many people's recovery, it has not replaced it. At the same time, bullying around fat bodies and trans bodies is still on the rise as well. So it's not fixing anything. It's not doing anything. It's complementing certain aspects. I think it's bringing this reality that so many of us needed, but there's still a root issue that exists, that some are more acceptable in society for how they look and others aren't. And that makes it really difficult for people to kind of go and exist in the world and not desire any change for themselves, or have to muddy through those feelings of, why do I want change when I'm trying to be body positive? I'm trying to be self-loving, but I'm not accepted in, you know, I can't sit on trains the same way. I can't, you know, get the same types of jobs. I'm ridiculed when I don't wear makeup. I'm ridiculed when I do wear makeup. It just becomes such an issue that kind of gets weighted on our shoulders, which my hope is, how do we deprioritize our bodies so that they just kind of become the artistic canvas in which we live, but they're not the reasons of our worth, and therefore aren't the reasons that, you know, we get the jobs or we ride the trains or all of these different things, that it's no longer like this movement or this media, you know, marketing tool that so many people use, and it's actual structural system change that happens everywhere, instead of just being like this buzzworthy little moment in time. So it's going to take some time.
There is still such a traditional view on what you should and shouldn't look like. And if you see it on Instagram of somebody, they'll say now, like, well, they're not wearing makeup and they haven't got hair extensions in, like, whatever it is, like, they're embracing their natural beauty, like, they're so beautiful. And then you'll get somebody that perhaps isn't the norm, or still not so accepted in society. And I feel like the agenda is more good for you for showing the way you are, which
so brave.
It's like you said, it's trying to normalize that these are just our bodies, like, they all do look different.
Yeah, and it's like, I get that a lot with, like, oh, you're such an inspiration. I'm like, I'm an inspiration for living, and just actually being like confident within my body, even though I'm not confident with my body, if that makes sense. So me and Sam did a podcast a while ago talking about having body confidence, but not feeling confident within your body, because there's so many other things that people have to deal with in life. So you know, you can be confident, you can feel a certain way, but that your body may react a different way and you may not be able to do something. And it's like, there's so much more than people see. And there's so much more than meets the eye.
And like you said, when you were getting that recognition, like, oh, she's losing weight, she looks great, but actually you were going through a really tough time, but no one saw past that because they were like, well, she looks great. So
yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. And I think that's why we have to work so hard to almost detach kind of what Jordan was saying, like our confidence from our bodies, because if it is tied to our bodies, that's a variable, like that's a variable risk. And you're going to have days that you're not feeling it. You're going to have days where you're actually physically incapable of it. So how can we have our worth and our confidence tied to those things? It's almost like we need to tap into our confidence beyond our bodies, and then everything just becomes this like secondary choice, this kind of like whatever. And I like to talk about that sometimes because I love makeup and I never can really describe to people why it matters to me. But I've realized now that if I'm having like a really like fiery kind of day, I reach for the red lipstick and I'm like, the red lipstick isn't making me fiery. The red lipstick isn't making me confident. What it's doing is reflecting how I'm feeling. It's becoming like, it's a way of expression. If you look at artists and the way that they paint on a canvas, it is a reflection of something they're feeling, something they're pulling from, something they've been inspired by. So my confidence isn't attached to a red lipstick or a shade of color or whether or not I have it on, but I love having those choices. I love kind of being able to have certain things that reflect that. And I also like to show up without any makeup and feel like my confidence isn't, wrecked in any sort of way. Or if I'm pregnant right now, so I'm actively gaining weight. But it is almost like this respect for your body as opposed to, you know what, I don't always love what you look like, but I respect the hell out of you. I feel like you're doing a really good job with like everything that we're going through together right now. And I've just really had to shift a lot of where this worth comes from. And at the same time, really recognize that as a society and on social media, we are visually driven. And so when we see people with cellulite, when we see people with stretch marks, or when we see people kind of owning their disabilities, it feels so courageous, even if it's just an opportunity for us to show up and exist in the bodies that we're in. It's seen as bravery because for so many, they're still in this box of that is where my shame exists. I don't know what life is beyond that.
Yeah, it's a bit like bodies have become, well, they always have been, a bit of a fashion statement. And it's like, it's not. It's like, this is why as well, really, it's important not to compare and not to just see what, not to just absorb so much that we see on social media within like this perfect body of the moment, because it's a fashion trend right now to be a certain way. And it's like, if we look back to the 90s, that was completely different. And it's like, that's why it's so important to just work on yourself as an inside job. Because then you'll radiate what you want to radiate because you are just feeling good. And I think the key is to feel good within yourself inside, and it will reflect outwardly. Of course, we have those days where we're just like not feeling it. But even if you got to that ideal body that you think is ideal for you right now, guys, if you're listening, you'll still think, what can I change now? There's 100%. There's never a destination. The journey is everlasting.
That's why there's this quote, I don't remember it directly, or who it was from, but they said, like, if you ever wanted to know that it was never about your body, go look back at a photo when you actually really thought you looked good and remember how you felt then. There's never usually historically a time where we feel great about our bodies. And the reason that we can see it for other people, I know somebody even commented yesterday and they're like, I can see your body and I think you're so stunning, but why can't I feel that for myself? It's like, because you've had to exist in your body and retaining all of this narratives, all of the criticism along the way, all of those feelings. So of course it's easier to see it on someone else. With you, it's like this constant unpacking of, diet culture and bullying. I remember when my daughter came home from school in the 4th grade, and the first time anybody ever called her fat, and she was sobbing. And I burst into tears, not because of her, but because it brought me back to the first time I was ever called fat. And this is the thing. I could remember what pants I was wearing, what shirt I was wearing. I could remember where I was standing in middle school. I was in the 7th grade. I was wearing lavender corduroy pants that were flared. I was wearing jelly sandals and a velvet crushed daisy top, standing at my locker. And this guy named Dan came up to me and said, "How was your vacation, Sarah? Looked like you enjoyed quite a few hamburgers, eh?" And pinched my stomach and walked away. That sits in my brain forever. Like, that's there forever. So yeah, I can look at somebody else's body and say, "You look amazing." But when I look at mine, I'm existing with these little tiny traumas of these moments in time that we've all had. And so when my own daughter had hers, I sobbed because I realized this isn't going to leave her. This is going to be the rest of her life. It's going to sit in her brain, and she will remember the day somebody called her fat. And that was a negative word, fat, which is why I love that we're kind of taking back the word now. And when we say fat, we're almost having to like reprogram our brains. Like, it's not a bad thing. It's not like a swear word, right? Like it's a natural thing. There's like that quote about, everybody has fat, like everybody has fingernails. We aren't fingernails, so therefore we're not fat.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important to remember that when you see other people kind of living and existing in their bodies with maybe that confidence that you crave, remembering that it's always going to be harder for your own self because you're unpacking so much more and you're only ever seeing a surface scratch of what's going on with them. Similar to what you said, Sam, when people complimented me for my body 5 years ago, had no idea that I had just moved into my parents' house. And yeah, like I was thin, but that was the only thing people could congratulate me on. And my whole world was completely imploded.
So for you then, Sarah, obviously you went through that where you originally had that mindset of like, I'm going to lose this weight and then I'm going to be happy with myself. And then it transpired that wasn't necessarily the way it worked. Did you have was it anything in particular that shifted overnight, or was it quite a learning journey to get to the point where you realized actually it's not that? Because I think that's such a common thing. I see so many people that are now in that position where they've lost the weight and they're still unhappy and they feel a bit lost, or weight, whatever it is, made any changes. Like you said, there's so many different things you can do and then they're still not quite happy. So I'm just curious whether it took you a while to realize it, or it was a bit like a epiphany moment where you were like,
I think it did take a while because I was quite thin for at least a year or so. And I had gotten really used to it's amazing when you're that small, everything fits you like it was designed to fit your body. So there's perks to it. And there's everyone's complimenting you and men treat you differently. There's there's a shift that happens for sure. But it was weird that I didn't feel it, that I didn't really feel better even when all of those things were going on. And at the same time, I saw some people showing up on social media in their bodies and kind of part of the body positive or self-love movement. And I was so rejecting of that because I was like, I don't want to see people loving their bodies because I'm in the process of trying to fix mine. And so I was trying to hate myself happy. So it didn't really fit for me, but it was a mustard seed in my brain because it kind of sat there and it kind of grew. And as those kind of anxieties started to add up, when I started to realize that, and there was a couple moments as well, like my daughter one time said to me, "People only love you because you lost weight." And I was like, oh no, there's people, I'm now recognized for my weight loss. And I'm so much more than that. I'm a writer and I'm a mother and I'm doing I have this new career job. I have all of these amazing things that I'm doing. And all anybody sees me for is how thin I am. And that was my life success story. And I started to kind of become resentful to the fact that I was sold the story. When you think about before and afters and you think about, the woman holding up the newspaper and she's sad and she's dowdy, and then she holds up and she's thinner and she's got the new newspaper to, time stamp that time in her life, and she's thinner and she's happy and she's exuding that. And I was doing that exact same thing, but I was like, I don't actually feel that. I actually don't feel that happiness that I feel like I was told I was supposed to have. So I felt duped. I felt duped by diets, and I felt duped by weight loss and the fact that it didn't ever feel like enough. And I also noticed at the same time, and I'm not judging for this whatsoever. I don't care if anybody wants to look like Barbie through and through, that's their body and that's their choice. But I recognized that within the weight loss community, almost everyone ended up on this path of massive surgery because there was like this step and then this step. For someone like me, that was dangerous. I couldn't do something like that and be like, now I've at least I've dealt with, something that was a common problem for me. Like loose skin is not a comfortable thing to exist with. So I have no judgment for anybody who removes it. But for me, I don't know that I would have been able to stop. I think it would have started, and I think I just would have looked at everything else that I could change on myself constantly. So it was a really uncomfortable moment. And you have to realize too, at that time, I had 3 different surgical doctors who offered me free, whatever I want, the full mummy makeover I could have. And I just was like, I can have it all. I can do this, but I'm feeling really scared because I've already done the weight loss thing. I've already gotten myself down to the size, and I'm still feeling anxious and depressed in my body. I know this isn't the problem solver. I don't know that I can take another step down this path. I think I've got to go a completely different direction. And where it ended up landing me was back on those posts that I like kind of hated of these women loving their bodies. And I was like, it felt like this warm blanket. Like I can actually wake up every day and I can exist in my body. I don't have to be fearful around food. I don't have to calculate everything I'm doing. I can breathe. I can live. I can show up. What will that look like? And so it just started to be this bit of a trickling effect, I guess. And as I started to share, I remember the one day I was wearing a bra and leggings, and I pulled down my shirt to kind of very curatedly show my stretch marks one of the first times. And the bra I was wearing, I tagged the company, and all of a sudden the CEO is in my inbox, in my DMs. And she was like, I'd love for you to come for a photo shoot next Tuesday and be part of our next campaign. And I was like, no, because you have to remember at that time, I was editing all my photos. I couldn't show up for a photo shoot because then I was going to be a totally different person. And I was going to have to be seen the way they chose to see me. Anyways, she pushed me into it. I showed up, and I remember like trying to fast like the whole week before going. And I got there, and I remember looking at the photographer, and she is like a foot shorter than me. And they're shooting from a low angle, and they put me in low rise underwear. And I was just like, no, this isn't happening. Like I take photos from a high angle. Everything is done a certain way. I keep my hips back. Like I had zero control over this now. And they ended up taking this photo from a low angle in my low rise underwear, angled up towards my stretch marks and my midsection that had just lost over 100 pounds. So I've got loose skin. I've had 3 kids. To me, it looked like a hot mess. And then they posted the photo, and that was like the second gut punch, which was, even though that day actually ended up being so magical, it was still a gut punch to see that photo because I had so much shame around my midsection. And what happened though is because it wasn't me that was posting it, it was them, I got to just read the comments from like everybody else reacting to it. And that was the first time I'd ever seen, like, I thought I was the only one that had stretch marks like that. So reading the comments, it was just woman after woman being like, I had no idea that other women like me existed. Like I didn't know that I wasn't alone in this. And it's so exciting to see such a beautiful woman owning her marks and like having a body that looks like mine. I've never seen it. And then I started digging, and I found out that like 50% of women have stomachs like mine, or have stretch marks on their body, or have them in extreme ways. And I just started like obsessively going over these comments and being like, oh my gosh, how many of us have been existing in the corners of society because we thought this thing was holding us back from it. And yet we all had it. We were all the same, and we all just thought we were alone. Yeah. So while I was kind of on this path of really struggling, I also was on this path of recognizing what an impact it could make, not only on others, but like on myself. The same as like, once you tell a secret, it loses its power. I stopped thinking about my stretch marks so much. I stopped worrying about if my bathing suit showed them. I didn't like, I don't know. I went from walking backwards out of a room with my partner to like owning it, like owning my body and just not thinking about it so much anymore. And it wasn't like I was like, look at these beautiful stretch marks. it is so amazing. My midsection is so perfect. Like, no, I felt like crap about it. I was just like, whatever. It's not like, that's not who I am. Like, I have so much more to be confident about. This is so normal. This is what my body did in reaction to a normal occurrence in life.
Yeah.
And so I just started showing up for myself more. And I started recognizing the importance of sharing some of these things along the way too, just to kind of even add one other person to be like, you know what, I can go to the beach. It doesn't matter that I have stretch marks. It doesn't matter that I have loose skin, or it doesn't matter that I have, you know, all of those different things. And that's kind of where it blossomed, and it kind of boomed from there. So it was quite a ride from actually journeying through self-hate while posting online about it. It wasn't like I met the destination and was like, okay, now I'll share my story. And I'm still like that. I still feel like I'm constantly unpacking and figuring out, kind of Jordan, what you said, like it's a lifelong journey, right? There's no destination here. You're constantly going through it as a human, because we are constantly changing. So we're constantly having to grieve our bodies and relearn our bodies and process our thoughts around our bodies, all the while trying to get rid of this mass distraction that society gave us that made us feel like that was the most important part of us.
Wow, it's just so amazing. I just think you're such a voice for so many people, and it's just making such an impact. And I know that when I found your page, I was just like, wow, it's just I don't know, you just have such a light about you as well. It's just like such a amazing thing. And I just think that so many women, I mean, guys, if you haven't heard of Sarah, check her out. Her Instagram is the Birds Papaya, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you'll find it in the show notes as well. But I just think that it's just amazing what you're doing. And even, you know, you are an advocate for so many women and so many people, because you've even shared me on your story before. And I was just like so grateful, because it's just, for me, I want to reach people who, you know, in the same situation, but for my situation with my disability. And I'm like, I'm not my disability, but it's part of it. And a lot of people won't show the world those parts of themselves because they're afraid that they, like you said, you're the only person. But it's not as all these issues that we make up in our mind, well, not make up in our mind, but have in our mind, that we focus on and put energy towards. So many more people have it too. And that we're human. We just got to embrace exactly who we are, even on the good and the bad days, you know?
The good and the bad. And I think it's important to hear each other's stories, and to hear stories that have about bodies that have nothing to do with yours, and or you don't relate to them whatsoever, because it's kind of like, if we get so distracted with our own bodies, it's kind of like driving on a highway with a ton of different cars and only seeing what's in front of you and not paying attention to anything else, just changing lanes, doing whatever you want. You're covered in blind spots. So, you know, all of a sudden, when you start to pay attention, if you start to follow different communities, if you follow the fat acceptance community, if you follow disabled communities, if you follow, you know, infertility communities, you start to become more aware of what life experiences are for them. If it wasn't for people like you, I wouldn't notice now the lack of ramps, or that when you go and press one of those buttons, the wheelchair buttons, that a door opens and it's not working, that should be on me to go and tell a staff member, not to wait until somebody is stuck outside in the cold because that button doesn't work, or they have to wait for someone to open the door. That should be on me to pay attention to. And it's people like you who showcase their life and share about it, and share about what it is to exist in your body, that me and my body, I can start not thinking about my body so much and actually start thinking of others. And, you know, for the last hundreds and hundreds of years, women have existed in these societal standards of molds that tends to change every 10 years. Right now, it's like big boobs, curvy hips, big butt. But it's not always been that way. You know, you look at the 90s and it was a very different thing. It changes every decade. I think what's coming, and what I hope is coming, when I'm seeing is starting to shift, is that we're starting to look at multiple facets of women and in multiple facets of bodies. And it's no longer a representation of one, so that everybody else feels like crap about themselves until they become that one, if they ever are able to. And even when they get there, it's still quite never enough. But instead, actually looking and recognizing that beauty is so diverse and it's so different. And when you start to recognize that, you just start to realize that you can actually honor your own within the sea of how beautiful other people are, that someone entirely different from you can be beautiful. And that doesn't make you less beautiful. I'm such a quote person, but like, the saying, like, Christmas lights are stunning and so are flowers, and they have nothing alike. And I'm like, yes, it's so true. But yet with ourselves, they're like, imagine being a flower being like, I just want to be a Christmas light. Like, it's not going to work out for you. So I'm trying to just like apply that more and more. And I have this platform, which is really cool. And I have this platform because people advocated for me, people shared my story. And so whenever I find people out there that are just growing in their voice and sharing their stories, I think it's just as important to share those, because I just love when those stories end up reaching new people that they need to reach, and just building community that way, building communities of diversity instead of building just one where, let's be real, my whole feed looked like people that looked like me for the longest time, and now it doesn't. And I love that.
So powerful. Amazing. Wow.
I think it's important, like you said, it's people around you like that need to feel like you are inspiring. I think that's probably why a lot of people are drawn to you, because you're not saying, oh, I'm at this destination now and this is how I got here. People have seen how you've got there, like they've followed in your footsteps with it.
Yeah, and I'm doing it messily along the way. I mean, this year, I think for everyone was a bit of a tough year. We had to deal with new circumstances that were so challenging for all of us. And to process those feelings, I think it would be so dishonest of me if I showed up on social media being like, I figured it out. I know what to do. Here, let me inspire you. Instead, I'm like, guys, this is hard. This is difficult. I don't know what I'm doing, but look, we're going to do it anyways. We have no idea what we're doing, but we're showing up anyways. And I don't love what I look like, but I'm showing up anyways. And I'm processing, and we're journeying, and we're kind of going through that entirely different. I don't need toxic positivity. I don't need people to wish away the bad things in life. I want to face them, and I want to get through them, and then get to the next day and and that's how we kind of find happiness, is by honoring, the sad times and honoring the difficult days. And so, I mean, if we find me again in 5 years, I hope I'm an entirely different person for like all the right reasons. And I'm sure I'll say things that I've said today that I maybe feel I'm a hypocrite for 5 years from now, because I've evolved, and I'm excited for that. I'm excited to be a human that can make mistakes and change her mind and evolve.
Which is why I think it's great that you keep your posts up from all those years ago, because it's nice to even look back sometimes and think, oh, look how much I've grown. It's just, I love that. I really do.
Yeah.
And I find it quite relatable, because I did have a page where predominantly was like addressing the chronic illness community. And then I opened it up to a wider audience. Like, it was very private, and I had people I'd met online, but I took it off private so that friends and family and everyone around me could be part of it. And all of a sudden I felt such a pressure to be inspiring, because like you said previously, that's the trend at the moment, and it's fantastic, but it does put a lot of pressure on you to be called, oh, you're being inspiring, when actually I wasn't aiming to be. I was just trying to like live my life and do it. And how you said, like, your weight loss, that isn't you, that isn't all of you, that's just something that happened to you, I guess. And Jordan, people say, they look at a picture, oh, you're good for you, like, you're so inspiring, but that's not purely your message. And so I found that I was trying to think of posts and trying to find something inspiring. I ended up just giving up on it and just going back to, it's just my life. Like, if I think I did a story, I was like, if something I do is inspiring, then fantastic, but that's not my sole purpose. This is just my life. This is just how I'm living it and how I'm coping and how I'm coming to terms with things.
Well, I think as well, Sam, you were getting like, you would post something and then people would be like, message you, and you were like, oh God, no, I was just expressing how I felt. I didn't need everyone to rally around.
Like you said, it's that toxic positivity of sometimes you just want to say something because you want to share it with people, and then but it's only human nature for people to want to like fix it and to make you feel good. So people will be like, don't feel like that, be positive, or try this or do that, when actually the community where mine was more sort of aimed at was more sharing it, like you said, with that photo shoot you did, so that women were seeing it and then saying, oh gosh, like someone else's body looks like mine, that's normal. And that's kind of what I was trying to do. So I think it's still, everyone wants to be inspired, and it is coming from a good place, but there is still, it's shifted a bit to still be, but it has to be in this certain way. You can inspire, but it has to be in this certain way.
I so agree. Like we don't always want to see the bad, and we don't want to believe that that exists. But at the same time, we don't want to see somebody be perfect all the time, or we criticize them if they don't show the hard times, or we criticize them if they don't show enough happy times. And it kind of becomes this curated version of what is inspiring. For me, one of the biggest key things that I like to do, because if anybody listening is struggling with wanting to be an inspiration but not be toxic in the way that they speak it, one thing I do is I always talk in a me or we reflection. So if you read my writing, it's always like I or we as a connector, never like you need to love yourself, you need to do this, you need, because it creates everyone's backs will arch up and be like, wait, what are you telling me to do? Like nobody wants to be told how to live their life. But when you share your stories and people connect with them, that's kind of where it starts to tie in, and they're like, oh, like she's sharing her story. That's maybe not my story, but I really take away this from it. Or this is, they can kind of pick apart the pieces that work for them. And it isn't something like you're applying to them or telling them to do, right? Like it's, and it can be as simple as like, if you said to somebody like, you're a badass bitch today, and they're just like, actually, I'm a puddle on the floor. Like, don't say that to me, because that's actually so hard for me to process. Even while we're trying to be encouraging and fix things for other people, we don't realize what they might be working on honoring that day. Maybe they're honoring their sadness. Maybe they're honoring their discomfort, and it's just kind of giving space for that too. So I try and always write in a way that is reflective of how I'm feeling, as opposed to putting it out onto other people, which is something I used to do a lot more.
I love that. I think that's really awesome to say that.
And I think that's probably, gives credit to a lot of your success, because it is a we, it's not you sitting on the highest stool saying, look what I've done. Like, I think people warm to you and relate to you because you were there with them going through it.
I try. I mean, people will still look at, follower counts and dehumanize somebody because they see such a big platform, and they put responsibility on you to be a different level of human because of these things. But at the end of the day, I am just the same person I was all those years ago, just with some more learnings and just with some more tools. And maybe I've gotten a better grip on how to write, and I can take better photos and all of these different things that I've learned along the way. But it doesn't make me any different of a human in value of worth. So I don't, it's weird for me when people start to kind of dehumanize you or put you on a pedestal, as when my whole goal is to kind of bring us all down to the same level and remember that we all bleed the same blood. And so, well, not the same type of blood, but I mean, we all bleed red, we all turn to dust. We are all human, and our experiences in this life may be different. And I think we should really help each other out the best we can. But at the end of the day, we're all human, and no one person has the right to tell you how to live your life, and they never should. And so thinking about that when you're scrolling social media, reflect on the way that people you follow make you feel. I went from having like the most anxious ridden, like social media hangovers all the time, to feeling really positive and feeling really good when I scroll my social media. I feel like I'm learning. I feel like I'm laughing. I feel like I've made it into what it is that I need it to be, and letting go of the rest, letting go of the things that didn't serve me anymore, and being okay with that.
And I feel like your social media as well is such a community. Like you engage so much with your audience, and everyone seems to be engaging with each other. And I think that is really just incredible, to actually have a community where people feel that, they're being seen and heard within your voice.
Yeah. And I think that was something I chose when I quit my job a year and a half ago to work for myself and kind of do this full time. I made the commitment that half of my work day would be in the DMs and comments. That if I was going to be given this opportunity, that I would spend half of every work day in the community that helped me get there. So I spend 4 hours a day, every day, in those DMs, in those comments, being a part of being a part of the conversation, not just posting and ghosting. but really being a part of it, like interacting and enjoying this community. And not only that, but like allowing them their voice too, to kind of speak out when I say something that doesn't hit for them, or that we can have those uncomfortable conversations sometimes. And it builds me up as a better creator and as a better writer and as a better human as well, when I actually know my audience in a really intimate way, because we've had conversations at 3:00 in the morning over, you know, silly memes about dogs or something, like whatever it might be. There's just like such an intimacy. It's made it so much more enjoyable for me. I feel like I show up and get to hang out with my friends. And that's why I think it gets hard when there's like trolls that kind of come about, because I'm like, oh, that's not what we do here. Like we're kind of like a family group. Sorry. But yeah, it's been such an intentional thing for me to kind of really be involved into. And I love that people are surprised when I like reply to them or something. And obviously I can't get to everybody at this point, but 4 hours a day, every day, it is top priority for me,
incredible.
no matter what.
Yeah, that is. Well, thank you ever so much for joining us today, Sarah. It's been a pleasure. It's been really interesting conversation.
Yeah, it's been so interesting.
I feel like I've learned like loads of like myself.
I feel like we can just keep
listening.
talking.
But I'm like a notebook and take notes. Like, so.
Yeah,
re-listen to it.
No, you guys are absolutely fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much. And where can everyone find you? Just so everyone can look you
back.
Yeah,
I mean, you're going to find me the most on Instagram. Instagram stories is my main jam too. I'm on there a lot, at The Birds Papaya on Instagram. And then you'll find everything else from there. You'll find the blog from there. You'll find my podcast there. Everything kind of stems from there. My podcast is called the Papaya Podcast. I jokingly named it that, and then it stuck. So it is there as well. And yeah, I'm always open for more people to the party. So come on by if you were intrigued by anything today, and hopefully we get a chance to connect. But I just really appreciate you two having me on and this chance to have such a cool conversation.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Bye.
Bye, guys.